Welcome to Italy, everyone.
Oh, stop. You're killing me. I want to be there with you right now.
I missed an opportunity not to be eating gelato during
Oh,
this.
you
That was
did. You did.
such
You
an
could have really hurt
opportunity.
me. You could have really hurt me.
I know. I'll just quickly pan around to show
Oh,
everybody the
so
beautiful village
beautiful.
and a lovely sunset behind me.
I love
Could
it.
be worse.
It could. It could. Welcome to our next Human Hacking Live with Lisa Forte. The drill is the same. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat and I'll get them over to Lisa. Guys and gals, remember, we're not going to ask super personal questions, so you could put them there, but we will ignore you. And we may even make fun of you publicly if you try to troll her or us. It just doesn't work well, so we won't do it. Now, why do we have Lisa on the show? Well, Lisa's one of the few female social engineers that I've got the pleasure of knowing and meeting over the years. And we became friends because she lives close to an area in the UK where I go and do training. And she's been in this space for quite a few years. And right now she's one of the nominees for one of the 50 most influential women in tech, which is a really exciting award for her to be nominated for. And we're going to be cheering her on as she wins that, we hope. But we thought it would be a really great conversation to have with Lisa about women in InfoSec or women in tech and how to get into that space, as well as being a social engineer and a female in the UK. So welcome on, Lisa. It's great to have you.
Hello, everybody. And if you're wondering why I've got this, it's because I'm in Italy and from 6 p.m. onwards, it's illegal not to go out without masks. So you have to wear them on your wrist in case the police walk by and you can sort of prove that you've got it.
You see, that's just intelligence, though. That's true. It shows you how smart the Italians are.
Yeah, we are. We're innovative people for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, think about it. That they had some pretty bad cases with COVID back in the beginning, and now they're one of the safest countries to be in. So they handled it right. They took care of it, and now it's okay to be there.
Totally. And I think it was it shook the Italian people up a lot, what happened back in March.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think they've really responded with a very strong sense of community and responsibility for that community. So I think that's really paid off and is credit to them, really.
Do you know anything about the situation in Italy with COVID when it comes to like cyber attacks or info attacks? Has that increased in Italy also because of what's going on?
Yes, it has. And again, we've seen quite a lot of scams happening with the hospitals, especially where they've bought emergency PPE from a company in Vietnam that they've done no due diligence on, but they're panicked. They've spent, in some case, millions of euros. And then obviously it either doesn't exist or the PPE is, substandard, not what they thought they were ordering. And I know that that's happened time and time again in Europe. Generally, a lot of the European countries have had that issue. And I think it just goes to show, doesn't it? I mean, you and I have talked about this before, that when you're panicked, when you don't have that time to sit and think and consider it, you make bad decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes not just for individual humans, but this is proven true here in this case in a whole country, a system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little scary, but I'm happy that they're pulling out of the other side and that it's a safe place to be because I really love going to Italy, so I can't wait to go back. Hopefully 2021. Yeah. Hopefully 2021 will make it better. So let's talk about your start. How did you even get started in InfoSec? How did you decide I want to be a social engineer? How did all of that start?
So it was kind of a bit random because actually my sort of start in my career was in law. And funnily enough, and you probably know this, but funnily enough, when I was training to be a lawyer, a lot of the stuff they taught you at law school for cross-examination and, portraying things to a jury to get them on your side, now in hindsight is social engineering, 100%, right? It's it's about phrasing things and spinning your story the way you want to spin it so that people believe you and not the other side. So little did I know, but I was sort of being coached into it from there. And then I went into counterterrorism in the UK. And then into the UK Police Cybercrime Unit, one of them. And then from there, I just fell in love with the social engineering side of things. And the worst thing was, when I was in the cybercrime unit, there wasn't really innovative cases going on. That was the most frustrating thing because it was the same thing. It was emails and it was phone calls. almost all of the cases. And it was just the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And I just got to the point where I thought, you know what, I can do more in the private sector than I can in the police. So I left, and here I am.
And how was that, leaving the police, starting your own company, especially as a woman in InfoSec? How were there struggles? Were there things you had to go through that you count as learning lessons?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for a start, starting your own company, as you all know, you go from being employed to do a job to being HR, PR, comms, accountant. You know, literally every aspect of the job suddenly becomes yours. So I don't think I really thought the learning curve was going to be as big as it was.
Yeah.
You know, doing the job was fine, but it was running the company that was like, it was just such a shock to the system.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite hard. And I think generally I've always got the feeling that if I was a 6 foot tall, brown haired man, it would be a little bit easier. But as a social engineer, I think being a short, blonde woman works very well. So
very well. 70% of my company is women because of that reason, because women are just better at the job. You're just better at being a social engineer. So I agree with you on that from the social engineering side. I can't speak, of course, to being a woman in the field.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think people think short blonde women don't commit crimes. So
I actually would agree with that. So there was a study done, I found that fascinating, that said that we tend, both males and females, tend to view women as non-threatening.
Right.
It's a complete wrong bias, right? It doesn't make any sense, but we look at you and we say, well, I mean, how can you possibly hurt me? Look at you. You're a tiny little woman. You can't hurt me. So you're non-threatening. So if you're asking for help, I should be able to go help you because, there's no way you could hurt me. Completely false thinking and reasoning, but they say it in their brain and that makes them want to help more.
Totally.
Yeah.
And with, if you smile and you sort of make your voice a little bit softer, and then suddenly people just think you just need a bit of help and you need to be shown into that office or whatever. And that, there can't be anything else going on at all. So it's quite a good weapon, really, in many ways.
It was funny. I was having this conversation with Sharon Conhidi. She's another British woman that is a social engineer. And she was telling me this one time she broke into an office building and a couple security guards walked in and caught her. And she, like, in a moment of panic, dropped to the floor and they said, "We can see you." And she goes, "Good, then come help me." And they're like, "What is happening?" She goes, "I lost my earrings." And she had taken an earring off as she fell to the ground and threw it under the desk. So these two guys are under the desk helping her look, and one of them finds the earring. Now they feel great because they helped her find this earring. And she's like, "Oh my God, thank you. Give me a hug." And she gets the earring and they escort her out of the building safely, but she had broken in. And I'm like, yeah, I can't pull that one off.
No.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work for me.
No, I think that's our one thing that we have as women. We have that power. So I think that's an empowering message we found there, Chris.
It is. It is a very empowering message. It is wonderful. So, so what are some of the other lessons you've learned in starting a company that focuses on what appears to be a male-dominated industry? But what lessons have you learned in getting that going and being so successful that now you're nominated for this wonderful award at being one of the most influential women in technology?
I think there are a few sort of lessons that I've learned. Not all of them are positive, I would say as well. The first thing I think is, as a woman, you have to put yourself out there a lot more. You have to make sure you're on all the platforms and that you're speaking at conferences and you're putting your name everywhere, because it is harder and you do have to shout louder about your credibility and what you bring to the table. And I think the other thing that I've learned is to have a sort of different personality. Just be yourself, but sort of be a bit unique. Don't try and find, a lot of people say, or find a role model or someone who you think you want to emulate. And I think emulating is fine, but the danger is you try and mimic and copy what they're doing. And I think that's a really big mistake, because one of the things that that struck me first about you when I first listened to your podcast, however many years ago that was, when I was still in the police, was that it was different, and you asked hard questions that didn't necessarily have an answer. And it wasn't sort of just reading out of a CISP textbook and, you know, regurgitating the same old message. And I think that's what you've got to be very careful of. As a woman, especially, you have to just be unique is my biggest tip, I think. And anyone who follows me on Twitter will know how unique I am, because, you know, you can get anything on my Twitter feed. Yeah,
that's an interesting take. But, you know, actually on that point, before I talk about your 2 points, I think what I have found, like watching people like Dave Kennedy and stuff, is when you add some personality into your Twitter feed, where it's about not just about tech, but it's also about you.
Yeah.
People tend to identify with you a little more. You become more of a person. You become more of a person I wouldn't mind just sitting and having a drink with and talking, because you're real. You're not just this, you know, 10-foot statue that does infosec stuff. You know, I think that is a good lesson to learn for people who are afraid. When I first started on Twitter, I didn't want to put anything personal on there because I thought it was going to make me insecure. But after a while, I realized, like, putting things about my kids on there, or my dog, or my hobbies like beekeeping or whatever, that makes people feel like, oh, look at this guy, doesn't just do SE stuff, he's actually a human. You know, he's a father, he does this, he does that, you know, it's kind of humanizes you a little bit.
Yeah, and I also think that, so I have a YouTube channel and I put out content, and I think another thing that's really important that I've learned is that all the content you put out isn't about you. It's not about what you want or what you're, you know, anything like that. It's about your viewers or about your listeners if you have a podcast, and them getting value and them enjoying the content. Yeah. And so if you don't make an effort, and there are lots of people in the industry who sort of go, oh, just blag it, which is my worst. I hate that phrase more than anything in the world. Well, pineapple on pizza and that phrase, those are the 2 things I hate.
Oh my God, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to hug you right now, virtually. I love you so much.
I'm not even sure I can say that here without getting stoned. It might actually happen. I might get arrested.
You hear? Okay, people, listen to her. This is why she's going to win the nomination. You need to understand, pineapple on pizza is offensive to every palate on the planet that has a brain.
It's a fruit. Fruits don't go on pizza.
Not on pizza. Not on pizza. Oh, man. This is the best IG live ever. Ever. I love it.
Yeah, we're just confirming each other's views. It's like silent thinking.
But that's okay. We're the only 2 people that matter right now, right here.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. But yeah, no, I do think it's all about your content that you put out and your viewers, and remembering who you're doing it for. Because when you say, oh, you know, I'm just going to blag it, what you're saying to all those people who read your blog or come to your talk is, your time doesn't matter to me at all. So much so that I'm not going to make any effort. And for me, that is just not acceptable.
Now, for some of the Americans that are here, explain what it means to just blag it.
Oh, okay. So this, it means sort of not putting any time or effort into it, not prepping, not bothering, and just showing up and thinking that somehow you'll pull it out of the bag.
Yeah. Yeah. We have some people arguing, saying tomatoes also a fruit, so our argument's not valid. But you're all stupid, so that's fine. Okay, there, we win. No. Now, I want to go back.
Delete these comments? We can delete the ones that don't agree with our views. I think that's
don't worry. I'm going to start booting people. Just, you know, you're done. No. So you brought up something in your 2 lessons when I asked you, and one was about being out there, putting content out. Like you know, you've started a podcast. You have this YouTube channel where you put, you know, information out on the internet. I know you write in a blog. You have your Twitter account. You're on LinkedIn nonstop promoting these things. Why? And you kind of answered the question already, but I really want to hit on this because I think this is such an important point. In doing all of this, your focus is always about the people who will be ingesting that content. Mm-hmm. How hard is that, though, to constantly put out content when you're thinking about the audience instead of, you know, self-promotion?
I find it easy. I find self-promotion the hardest thing in the world. I hate it. And as soon as I have to say something good about myself, I sort of have to vomit on the side as well. So it's like, it's just horrible. So I generally find putting stuff out for other people really beneficial. I think one thing that's challenging, in my opinion, is asking people for feedback, because I tend to find that bar a few people, the feedback is always, oh yeah, no, it's great. Whereas actually what I'm
Yeah.
wanting is, it was good, but I think what could have been better was if you did X, Y, and Z,
Yep.
because that helps me improve. So I sort of feel like we have this fear of giving kind of realistic feedback because we don't want it to be seen as criticism.
That's a really interesting point because I mean, let's think about like just society today. I would agree with you 100% because I think it's hard unless you are friends with the person because you're always fearing that what I say to you comes off and you take it as I cut you down because you're a woman, or you didn't ask me for that feedback and I told you something that you didn't like to hear and now it's a war. Whereas
Right.
I'm kind of like you in the same sense that I ask people who I trust. So I'll say to somebody who I would value their opinion, say to you like, hey, can you tell me, what do you think about this, or this?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you tell me, I'm looking for that feedback because I know that you'll also give it to me honestly,
Yeah.
as opposed to just telling me everything I do was awesome. I would trust you to say, well, you did okay, but you could have done this part better.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And I
not
think
easy.
that's what you want. That's what you want, definitely. And I think it is hard because often we would either just go, yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But in reality,
Yeah.
how many things are really amazing? Not that many.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Italian food,
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
any pizza without pineapple on it,
That's
that's
true.
amazing.
Literally any pizza without
Gelato.
pineapple. Yeah.
Gelato is amazing. Yeah, I guess that's about it. That's all I can think of right now. You made me think of Italian food. Okay, so you brought up, listen, putting content out. You have to put yourself out there more. What are some of the dangers of that, especially as a woman in tech, when you put yourself out there more? What have you found to be some of the challenges in doing that?
Trolling.
Mm, yeah.
It's it's weird because I would say I was fine, and then I think I got to however many followers online, and all of a sudden it started. And since that point, which was probably just over a year ago, it's basically unrelenting.
Mm,
And I think women probably get it worse than men. I don't have any proof for that though, so I'm sort of just assuming from people I've spoken to. But yeah, it's bad, and it can be personal. It can be about basically anything, from appearance to it's very rarely criticism of the content you've actually put out. It's usually just abuse. But
mm,
I've had horrific videos sent to me of violent crimes with my face superimposed and just
really?
everything you can. Oh yeah, everything you can imagine.
For what?
Um,
What was the reason? They hated what you put out, or they just don't like you?
they just hated a picture that I put out, and
Really?
they said that I looked like a sort of woman that didn't have very strict moral codes, and then it just went from there and off it.
Whoa.
Yeah. And, on LinkedIn as well, mainly on LinkedIn, I get a lot of inappropriate nude messages from men, nude images on LinkedIn is the worst platform. That is definitely the worst platform for me, in terms of messaging, because you can't on Twitter, you can at least say, well, only people I follow can send me messages. Whereas on LinkedIn, you can't do that. So it's a bit problematic. So I would say that to any woman who's wanting to increase their profile, just be aware that this will happen and that you have to have a strategy for dealing with it, because it can be overwhelming.
That's I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is definitely worse than men. I have been trolled, I've been insulted, but I've never had that level. I've never had that level of hatred or abuse for nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's related to something I said that someone didn't like, or I get people call you fat or whatever, but that doesn't. I've never had something that terrible done
Yeah.
out of the blue for no reason. I can't even imagine that
Yeah.
at all. Wow.
It is difficult, and I think now I can deal with it a lot better, and I've got a better sense of sort of how to process it and delete it and whatever. But back in the day, I think it really affected me, and it would get to the point where I was really, really upset by it, really upset. And eventually I think I learned to deal with it. But I think it is something you have to be aware of, because I think anonymity is great for a lot of reasons. It's not great for people who want to behave badly, because it
Yeah.
gives them that carte blanche
Yeah.
to say whatever they want.
I got a series of questions, but I want to start off by just saying, on behalf of all men who have any morals, I apologize. That is That is disgusting and terrible. It really is. It disturbs me greatly. I, it's just, it ruins it. It's just terrible to think that you could put yourself out there to do good, because that's what you're doing. You're educating people. You're bringing light to a part of InfoSec that we might not have much of, and then people can just be this way. It just is. It's disturbing. I got 3 questions that came in. One is, would you want to be on a panel or coaching other women that may have gone through the same thing to discuss this topic?
Definitely. Anything I can do to help people and, use my experience to help them, because I would have really benefited from it had that been on offer for me at the time. So 100%. And men and women, anybody, if you get trolled and you want to talk it through, or, anything, I'm always here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, Maxie is going to reach out to you about that. That's something that I think would be very beneficial to have as a discussion, because I think we oftentimes hear women talk about being harassed or abused by men online, but we don't then follow through with a discussion on what to do about it.
Right.
Like, how do you handle it? Even if there's not a recourse, like maybe there's no recourse, you can't do anything to these people, but how do you deal with it so you don't crawl into a hole and just cry yourself to sleep every night?
And that's the thing that I think I had to learn, was that the police can't do anything. Certainly not in the UK. Yeah. I don't know if the US they have more power. I don't know, but in the UK they can't do anything. You can block them. They'll just create another account. So I think you have to become resilient, because, or you have to leave social media. Those are the basic options you have.
In the U.S., it's not until a threat of violence is made, but even then it has to be, they're oftentimes not taken seriously.
Right, it's the same, yeah.
Right. I mean, there was a case here of some guys who were trolling a woman who was really good at gaming, and they were saying even, we're going to come to your house and do horrible things to you. And they ended up hurting her, but she reported it to the police multiple times. It was never taken seriously.
Yeah, no, it's the same in the UK, really, because it's not believable if it's from an anonymous Twitter account. So they don't have the resources, I guess, to do it.
Yeah. Okay, we got a few questions. So one of them that was back a couple, it said, how do you start on your first blog post? Like, what is your process to even just start blogging, and how do you do it?
I would say, for me, I found a story that was just really interesting, and I was thinking about it, and I thought I had some opinions, and I just started putting pen to paper. And I think the key is, don't go and read loads of blogs and think, okay, I'm going to be more like this person or more like that person. Just be you and put your opinions down there and see what happens, because it will evolve. And I'm sure you're the same with your podcast. What you're at now was not where you started on your first
Oh, dear
episode.
God. No. No.
So I think, and it was the same for my YouTube channel. I think if I go into it thinking this has to be perfect, cinematic quality, then I'm never going to start. So it's better to start and then let it evolve. So that's what I would say. Just don't be worried about it. Just go for it. Write your opinions down. Talk about things that matter to you, and just let it evolve from there.
Yeah. It's funny when you say that, because I had a chance. I went back once. Someone was asking me didn't you have this guy in your podcast? So I went back to my older ones to listen and hear it. And I went, and it was like number 27, and we're on 133 now. And I went back to listen, and I'm like, oh dear God, this is so awful. How does anyone listen to this? And it is so true. Like, when I was 11, I'm on 11 years of podcasting, if you can believe that. When I was 11 years ago, I'm like, oh no, this is not good at all. No.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it is funny.
Right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get up to this question. We had a good question. Okay, so as a new woman in tech, especially she's asking, especially as a newer woman, how do you handle someone in the industry that may have a large following being predatory in some ways? So using mentoring as a form to try to make a sexual connection with you. Wow, that's disturbing.
Yeah, you see, this
Holy
is the problem
crap.
for women. I feel like maybe your eyes are being opened a little bit to the stuff we end up having to put up with here. I would say there are so many amazing, experienced men in tech who will not treat you like that. So my advice is, just get out straight away. Don't tolerate it. Don't think that it's going to get better. If someone's not respecting you, get out. That's my biggest piece of advice, because I think the longer you linger, the more sort of gaslighting that will happen, the more you'll start feeling bad, the worse you're going to sort of dig yourself into that situation. And like I said, you know, people like Chris and like loads of other people who are just amazing people who will mentor you and help you and talk to you and give you advice. So don't bother with those people, because they are a minority. They stick in your head more than other people, but they are the minority.
Would you suggest, and I'm really asking this because I don't know, because my initial instinct, having Italian blood, is to slit their throat. But I'm thinking, like, should they be called out publicly? Should someone who does that be called out to you know, like, take that information and go, I went to this person for mentoring and they wanted to hook up? I mean, is that smart, or is that going to bring more abuse?
I think that will bring more abuse. And I think this is the problem, because I think in a perfect world, you would call people out who did this stuff, right? Because that's why they stop.
Yes.
But if they've got a very large following and they've been in the industry a long time, they will manage to turn it around. And you're likely, I personally think that for your own self and your own kind of mental health, it's better just to get out and just leave it, which isn't at all the right thing to do in terms of helping other women who might then go through it. 100% agree. But unless you're willing to kind of take on that fight and very publicly take on that fight, I personally would walk away. And that's where you're at.
Okay.
And it's horrible.
Here's what I'm going to say. If you have someone doing that to you, you come to me and I will get people with huge followings and we will call that person out. That is unacceptable behavior in this industry. For anybody, I don't care if you're male or female, that's unacceptable behavior in this industry. It's not in any industry, but in this industry, it's unacceptable behavior. That's disgusting. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense. You guys are disturbing me. It's supposed to be fun, Lisa. Okay. Let's see. There's a couple more questions. Here's one. You seem to have a very strong sense of identity. Do you think this stems from the adversities you faced, age, or something else? Hey, what are you saying? She's only 21. I mean, come on.
I'm 20, Chris. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I added a year. Sorry.
I'm definitely not 20. I don't know. I think part of it is my fiery Italian genes, for sure. I think I've always been quite confident and fiery, and I just also feel like I'm quite a fun-loving person as well, so I like to have a bit of a laugh. I think it's a difficult one, because we've all faced adversity, and I think if we're all still here, we've all come out the other side, right? So it does shape you and it does make you stronger. And I think I'm very much one of these people. One of my big things, actually, that I think everyone will benefit from is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I've spoken to lots of people in the industry who seem to have this perception that somehow they're going to sit there and all these people are going to approach you and ask you to come on their show and ask you to come on their podcast and their TV show and all this stuff, and it's just going to come out of nowhere. It isn't. That is my biggest thing that I think I want to say to people, that you got to go out there and just ask. And the worst thing is, someone's going to say, no, it's not suitable. You must get people all the time, Chris, asking to come on your show, right? Yeah. And
almost every week we get at least 2 or 3 requests. Wow. Almost.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's what you've got to think. Just don't be afraid of rejection, because I get rejected all the time. And I'm sure you've got rejected from stuff all the time.
And I still do all the time. All the time.
And I think it's difficult because obviously we don't post rejected again on our Twitter feed. So it only looks like we're having success. But That's a nice point.
It's a really nice point, Lisa. I was just reading this article about depression based on social media for teenagers. And it was an interesting point, because it said that just exactly what you said is, we never post, well, man, another flat tire, or wow, today I got dumped, or today I got fired. It's always look at this amazing meal, look at this new outfit, look at this car. And all you see on social media is the best of everyone's life, which can make you feel really crap sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And we all get rejected. Sorry, there's an Italian Vespa coming past.
I love it. It doesn't matter. We'll deal with it.
And I think I get rejected all the time, and yet, I keep going and keep asking and keep requesting stuff, and then things come off. And I think that's what you can't be afraid of. And, it just makes you stronger. And like you said, you see our highlight reel. That's all you see.
Yeah. Not all the struggles getting there. Yep. Here's another question. With trends of cybersecurity, where do you see focus in blue teaming, offensive, or a mix? Where do you see those trends going?
I think it always has to be a mix, to be honest. I think, I think both sides are kind of separate, but also they're obviously related, but they're very separate as well. And I think both have to evolve separately, but they're both equally as important. And I think this sort of thinking of red team, blue team, what should we do, what's more important, what's not, ends up backing you into a bit of a corner, because I actually think they're both equally important. And if you're doing one and not the other, and you're not investing sort of relatively equally in them, I think you're sort of making a bit of a mistake.
Interesting. Yeah. I hate to return to the horrible topic, but there's a question here, which I have an opinion on, but I'd love to hear yours, which is, would it be easier? So we're back to this where a guy is using his power in an industry to try to hook up, or to use that to say, I'll mentor you if you do something for me sexually. Would it be easier to just say you're in a relationship right away, to let them know immediately that there's no interest in any sexual involvement?
So I know this from a social engineering perspective as well. That particular situation has never happened to me. But I know that if I want to go up and build rapport with someone, and I don't want them to see it as I'm coming on to them in some way, then I will tell them that I've got a partner or a fiance or whatever. But I'll do so in a way that isn't me going up to them going, oh, I've got a partner, because that also looks weird, right? That also looks creepy. So you kind of go up and say, oh, that looks really interesting. I want to buy something similar for my partner. Where did you get it? So you can introduce the concept of the partner, but don't do it in a way that makes it look like you're either accusing them, firstly, because if you say, look, whoa, I've got a partner, that sort of looks like I'm accusing you of something. And also doesn't make it look like a bit creepy. So I would say do it, but do it in a sort of subtle way where you drop it into conversation instead.
I like that. I have this feeling, though, that if a guy is, or any person is willing to stoop to the level of using his power in an industry to get sexual favors, that you being in a relationship isn't going to matter too much.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, I feel like if he's that much of a dirtbag, it's just, he's not going to care.
Boundaries are clearly not his thing. Boundaries are not his thing.
Obviously, if he thinks that it's okay to do that, let's see. So how long did it take you to view a no or a rejection as neutral rather than negative?
Oh, I still don't think I've mastered that, to be perfectly honest. I still feel disappointed, and I still feel like it is a negative, but there are always other opportunities, and I adapt and overcome, or I'll ask them why they said no. Was it something about that I lacked in experience, or was I not the right face for it, or whatever it was? And then try and turn it into a how can I improve, as opposed to, well, that's the end of the road, because it's never the end of the road, really. You can always go back and ask again and again. So
yeah, I like that. I like that answer, because I think it does hurt to get rejected, no matter how much you've achieved or not. So I think that's a nice, honest answer, where it doesn't ever stop hurting, but you just learn how to move past it quicker, I think, when you have more experience.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
How would your family describe what you do for a living?
I know where that question has come from. Oh my God! Wow. I suppose it depends who you ask in my family. I think probably my family would probably say, "Oh, she plays around on the internet for money," which probably sounds really dodgy.
That's great.
Yeah, and then they used to say, "Oh, she does something with the police online," which also sounded dodgy. I think actually, if you just add online to any activity, it instantly sounds quite dodgy, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. I actually agree with that. Yeah. When my daughter was 5, she told her school during 5 or 6, she told her class during a show and tell thing that her daddy breaks into banks for a living. And and I was actually breaking into a bank that week. And the teacher got mad at her and said, "Please don't lie about your father." She got really animate. "He's breaking into a bank this week. That's why he's not at home." That was an interesting parent-teacher conference trying
Yes.
to explain.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great one. Let's see. I don't know if this is personal. You don't have to answer it. How is Normie Scorpy?
Oh yeah. So the scorpion who I caught, which I named Norman to promote
Oh,
multi-factor authentication. It's a long story. You'd have to be on my Twitter to find that. He died. He didn't survive. Either that or
I
he's
mean,
having a really long sleep. I don't know which way it is.
I'm not trying to be mean, but I feel like that, as every scorpion should, he has done what is needed, which is
Yeah,
die.
I mean, he is a hero as well. He promoted safety online before he died. So
we'll leave it at that. If you have more interest, you can. Okay, last question. Last question. Here we are. How do you deal? I think we're missing a with. I'm just going to read that. How do you deal with toxic infosec groups or niche attitude groups?
Wow. So I think one of the big problems in our industry is we become a little bit tunnel vision with stuff, and we start to think that this is the whole thing. And so I think having other hobbies that don't relate to infosec with people who don't have anything to do with infosec brings you back to real life a little bit, because I also find sometimes that I talk to so many infosec people, I start to think, yeah, this is ridiculous. Why is my mum not using an authenticator app to do this, this, and this?
Right.
My mum doesn't use SMS 2FA half the time. So, you know, getting her to do that is a challenge. So you kind of lose sight of reality. And I think that's the problem with some of these groups. You get too focused on this one thing. So one thing I would say is, if you're finding something a bit toxic, if you're finding yourself frustrated with the infosec groups or that you're in, go and do something completely unrelated to infosec for a little bit. And then you'll come back and you'll have a better perception of what's important and what's just not.
I love it. Lisa, so tell us, if people want to know more about you, they want to follow you, where can they find you? What's your Twitter?
So my Twitter is @Lisa Forte UK, very similar to my handle on here, just without the underscore. Rebooting is on YouTube. Go check it out, especially Chris's episode. One of my favorites.
Thank you. I loved it. It was awesome. And YouTube channel is also Lisa Forte. What's the YouTube?
That's just Rebooting is the YouTube channel.
Rebooting. Excellent. And your season 2 is starting when?
It's starting in a few weeks. Yep, starting in a few
awesome.
weeks. We've got some really big guests because I had to outdo season 1. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do for season 3.
You just keep setting the bar, right?
Not wise, yeah.
And also, just before we quit, you were on a TV show recently.
Yes.
That's going to be released when? When is that documentary? Yes, 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks'
That's awesome.
time, and it's all on scams and cyber attacks through the pandemic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait. Will it be released online or over the internet, or will it just be in the UK for now?
Yeah, no, it will be online, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That does sound dodgy. Yeah. There's a video of Lisa being released online in 2 weeks. Yeah, it sounds dodgy. You can't get away from it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear it now. No. So you have all of that. For all of you who were interested in the topic that we got on, you can tell all these are very dynamic. We don't really plan the topics. It sounds like we're going to have Lisa back on with Maxie. We're going to start doing women in InfoSec panels, and we'll have a discussion about how to handle some of these toxic relationships that sadly it seems like many of you poor women here have had to deal with over your careers in this industry. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being such a great positive influence and for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you, and goodbye from Italy, everyone.
Yeah.
Just put that in. I'm going to go for some gelato now. Sorry.
Oh,
I'm just going to put
killing
that
me.
in as well.
Oh, and by the way, the person who said gelato is just ice cream, no, it's not. Gelato is similar to ice cream, but it's made with a lot more air. So it is more airier and creamier. I know. These people are so uncultured. I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
I know. Gelato's ice cream. I mean, Jen, what's the matter for you, huh? Just ticks me off.
I know.
I know. Sorry, Lisa, you have to deal with that at the very end. These
It's the
toxic
worst
people.
abuse. It's the worst abuse I've ever had.
You need to go find another scorpion to balance us out.
I know, totally. Yeah, gosh. Anyway, it was great fun. Thank you so
It was
much for
great.
having me, and thanks everyone for watching.
And enjoy the rest of Italy, and we'll talk to you soon, Lisa.
Bye.